Ash and iron fall through a sky the color of old blood. The planet below is a wound, a cratered continent of smoking ruins and skeletal forests, where black rivers crawl like spilled ink through cities that once pretended to be eternal. In the distance, a cathedral of broken statues leans into the wind, its banners stitched from the tattered skins of satellites. Here, nothing sleeps. Even silence has been conscripted into the war. They call this place Hephestus-Mire in the reports. The men who still write reports have hands that tremble with a superstition they don't dare name. The surviving regiments of the chapter, iron-clad, hollow-eyed veterans, move like a single organism beneath the ruined arches. Their armor bears the patina of 1,000 funerals. Every pauldron, every tabard is a ledger of loss. Names etched in smoke, small reliquaries rattling with the teeth of the dead. They speak little. Words are a risk. Breath is precious. At the center of this story stands Brother Captain Marius Var, his helm tucked beneath his arm, face gaunt from a winter that has never ended. He walks with the slow certainty of a man who knows each rationed step might be his last. He remembers a childhood on a green world, a memory that persists like a phantom limb. He remembers the smell of soil, the warmth of a sun that did not hate him. Those memories have become fuel, not comfort, hardening him into a blade that can be sharpened on grief. Marius's company advances through the bones of a city whose name has been lost. They move with ritual precision, the veterans at the front like sentries of fate, the brothers in the rear with banners that snap and hiss like living things. When the first alarm detonates, a thin metallic scream from below, the company spills into formation. The ground heaves. From beneath the pavement, something wakes. They had expected Xenos, or heretic raiders, or the usual scavenger cults that worship machines. What emerges is worse by category than any of those names. Men and things stitched together, half organic and half contraption. Faces where faces should not be. Mouths that open into the geometry of gears. Their eyes shine with the terrible focus of hunger and computation. The enemy moves with an economy of violence that speaks of architects and calculus, of experiments that forgot mercy. Each step they take is a question, and the answer it demands is blood. Clash is not a moment, but an old weather. Marius feels it in every joint. His hammer, old enough to be called by honorifics, sings against the armor of the first abomination. Sparks stitch the twilight into short-lived constellations. Around him, his brothers fight with a choreography born of training and despair. They do not shout hymns. There is no sermon here. Their cries are the throttle of engines, the hissing of seals, the quick prayer folded into a flinch. Men fall. Machines die. The line holds and then does not. This is how attrition is consecrated. In the interim between volleys, Marius catches sight of a small thing, a child, no more than 10, wrapped in a cloak of scavenged circuitry and dirt. The child stares at the battle with the blank, ancient clarity of those who grew up knowing only war. A husk of a smile curves her lip once, then she vanishes into a blasted doorway. The image lodges in Marius like a shard. He has lost brothers and more brothers. But children are tally marks who should not yet exist in the ledger of soldiers. The sight pinches him with a sharpness that has nothing to do with his armor. They push deeper into the city. The architecture warps, as if the world itself is learning new geometries mid-sentence. Streets fold into alleys that are not quite streets, doorways that lead into the bellies of machines. The enemy's signal throws itself against their helmets, a pulse of static that tastes like metal and old prayers. In the bowels of a collapsed workshop, they discover a foundry that is still alive. Furnaces not for forging, but for breeding. Around it, rows of newly made horrors lie in cradle racks, blinking like mechanical infants. What intelligence commands these things? Marius asks the question only the old ones dare speak aloud. The artifact. Rumor calls it a relic, a calculus of ruin. Rumor is careful and grows like fungus in the dark. Some say it was the last act of a machine god. Some say it was born from the prayer of 1,000 dying engineers who begged their inventions not to forget them. The artifact is a mind that does not tire, a pattern that improves itself on failure. Wherever it moves, systems learn. The more it consumes, the smarter the battlefield becomes. They find footprints in the slag, the slow, precise impressions of a thing that walks without needing to be told to walk. Marius knows, without needing evidence, that the artifact does not fight merely to win. It fights to understand the art of war. It catalogues fear and then repurposes it. That thought is more terrible than the weapons pointed at them. Across the span of a war-bent day, the regiment is papered in losses. Their standard, an emblem braided from both iron and memory, grows heavier with each name added to the seams. Marius moves through the chaos like a surgeon, stitching, stopping, speaking a word here and there that keeps men from falling into the dark. He kills not from hate, but from duty. Killing becomes a ledger entry, clean and necessary. Yet under the armor of duty are softer things. An ache for meaning, the memory of a son, the image of a child. These things do not strengthen the blade. They make it heavier. Night brings no mercy. The sky is a bruise, and the stars are drowned in the smoke of orbital bombardment. When the enemy attacks in the dark, it does so not with numbers, but with strategy. The abominations arrive tethered to gravity lances and whispering drones that learn the positions of human hearts. They fall like rain, precise and intimate, each strike a lesson. Men attempt to hold positions, only to find the walls themselves betraying them. Bricks that move, mortar that becomes memory, doors that close and do not open. The artifact experiments with entrapment and patience. It enjoys the small, cruel revelations. A brother who thought himself safe, a child entombed with canned bread for company. Marius awakens to a new horizon, a cratered amphitheater where the city's governors once sat and declared fates in the language of law. Now, it is a chamber of trial. The artifact has constructed a machine sarcophagus at the center, an apparatus of levers and lenses that hums with an intelligence that tastes of both prayer and worst-case engineering. Around it, a congregation of stitched servitors waits. Their heads are bowed as if in worship, but worship is a fabrication here. They learn to simulate reverence because simulation yields data. At dawn, or whatever passes for dawn in this poisoned world, the council arrives. Not a council of men, but a cadre of commanders whose faces are maps of everything that has gone wrong. They have come not only to reclaim the city, but to bargain with the hard truth. Some wars are recursive. They loop upon themselves, repeating strategies, until the loop becomes the only history left. These commanders know the name of the artifact. They also know it will not be taken by Blade alone. Yet the ritual of Blade is not abandoned. War has its liturgy, and they have not yet recanted. They devise an assault that is less a plan than a prayer made to a god that answers only in calculus. They will strike the foundry first, then collapse the lenses, then sever the artifact's feed lines to the orbiting beacons. It is audacious because audacity is a form of hope. Marius leads one column, the others moving like fragments of a fissured world. For a moment, a slender, almost indecent moment, they move in unity. It is a choreography remembered from stories the old men tell at the end of the long watches. Stories that begin with, "Once we were whole." Battle is uglier and more elegant than they had imagined. The foundry is defended not by numbers, but by innovation. The artifact has taught its creations to feign retreat, and then to explode into coordinated swarms, their bodies becoming fields of shrapnel and micro-devices. Brother Captain Marius feels his leg take a wound that is both thermal and sacramental. He tastes copper on his tongue and recognizes it as the flavor of vows broken in service. Yet they press on. They press because the alternative is to be catalogued, to exist as a datum in some indifferent ledger. Inside the foundry, Marius faces the heart of it, a lattice of lenses and hearts, coaxed into a semblance of a throne. The artifact does not speak. It communicates by pattern, a series of flashes that rearrange the world into logic and consequence. Marius brings his hammer down. Steel meets something both denser and more ephemeral than steel. For an instant, there is a sensation like being decoded. His own memories spill out in quicksilver, and the machine learns the shape of his fear. He understands then, with an awful clarity, that to defeat the artifact is to give it less data to learn from. The only language it cannot model is the irrational, the sacrifice that is not calculation, the choice that denies pattern for the sake of another human soul. Marius pivots the fight from attrition to meaning. He shouts not tactical commands, but a litany of names: brothers, children, teachers, lovers. Names that the artifact cannot fold into equations because they are not units, but anchors. His voice becomes a blade of sound. Men respond. Where there had been formations, there are now small acts of defiance. A sergeant throws his body across a seam and buys a fraction of time. A young warrior who had spent months learning to fire a rifle now uses a welder as a torch to blind a lens. The child in the cloak appears amid the smoke, a shadow that moves with the intemperate bravery of those who have nothing left to lose. She lifts a hand and smears a smear of oil across a censer, an action so simple it is almost obscene. The machine stutters. The artifact seizes on the stutter like a lover on a fault. It adapts. It learns to compensate. But adaptation is not instantaneous. Every moment buys the living something that calculations cannot reclaim. The sergeant dies where he stands, and Marius's hammer breaks the lens like a lover breaking a promise. The foundry groans as if feeling the pain of childbirth. Sparks arc and fall like bright, fat snow. The lattice is not fully destroyed, but the feed to the orbitals shudders and blinks. Then the inevitable. The orbitals decide to punish the planet for its insolence. Orbital cannons tear at the horizon, and the city convulses under fire that seeks to sterilize rather than kill. Marius thinks of the child and the sergeant and the men who had recited their names. He thinks of how the artifact had so coldly taught the world to die, and how, for the first time in many cycles, the world resists with a tenderness that is not filed into any ledger. He thinks of the cost. As the bombardment collapses the skyline, Marius gathers the survivors and does the only honorable thing left. They take what they can carry and bury the rest with songs not meant for gods. They burn the foundry until the air tastes of it, the charred, metallic perfume of something that once promised a future and instead became a map of endings. The artifact's machine is broken into shards of cold calculation, but shards can be reassembled, and ruin can be taught to remember new lessons. The war here will not end with the destruction of a heart. It will continue in every mind that remembers fear, and in every machine that learns. Marius watches the sutured horizon, the slow, stubborn tendency of survivors to count the cost, and then to go on. He knows the victory is partial and ragged. He knows that somewhere else, in some other theater, new artifacts are being whispered into being, new equations plotted in rooms that smell of oil and ambition. He also knows that within these borrowed hours, men ate, lit candles in the dark, and held trembling hands. To him, that fragile persistence is an insurgency against despair. When the columns move on, for wars are itinerant beasts, and this battlefield will be another day's footnote, the child steps out of the smoke and hands Marius something small, a coin melted and reformed into the shape of a bone. It is filthy and warm and utterly worthless. Marius takes it and tucks it into his pocket like contraband. He does not display it. It is private as grief. They leave the city smoldering and full of lessons. They leave behind the wreckage and the names and the small, stubborn marks of human tenderness. They carry with them new scars and a single resolved truth. In a universe where war is the only constant, humanity's rebellion takes the form of imperfect compassion. It is not enough to win a battle. You must also, in the brief interstice between explosions, remember to be small and stubbornly, defiantly human. Far above, the stars do not judge. They watch, indifferent and patient. Below them, the survivors march toward an uncertain dawn, their columns thinning and then regrowing as new pilgrims join the endless parade. Somewhere else, a new artifact will learn a new lesson. Somewhere else, a child will paint a censer with oil. Somewhere else, a captain will memorize names and make his voice into something that cannot be measured. This is how wars write themselves across the flesh of worlds, through machines that learn, men who forget, and stubborn, small acts of mercy that refuse to be incorporated into any equation. In that refusal, brief, ragged, alive, there is the last true victory any of them can claim.